Welcome to Life Unrestricted.
This is your show if you're sick of living a life controlled by food and exercise rules, and if you're ready to learn how to accept yourself and enjoy the heck out of life. My gig is about body image, femininity, self-worth, and resilience. Come on, let's walk side by side as we slowly step out of restriction misery and unlock our true selves.
Your host, Merritt Boxler, is a former national radio DJ, freelance journalist, speaker, and writer with a passion to make women feel good in their bodies. This is a show brought to you live from Switzerland.
Hey there, lovely radicals. What do you say? How about a nice little ride together? Now that we've kicked January in the butt? Wait. I haven't got anything against January on the whole, but since it's become the official international month of dieting, it has lost whatever appeal it might once have had on me. And even though, Switzerland is loved for its winters, I personally could do without them. Call me weak, call me picky. I call myself winter averse. So January has never really had much appeal on me. And that makes me feel like an oddity sometimes because I'm surrounded by snow lovers and cold withstanders. But really, how do they all love short, dark days, foggy gray skies, frozen faces and feet? Granted, up in the mountains, up above the heavy carpet of fog that hangs over Zurich, winter can be extraordinarily beautiful. What with the pristinely white hills and silky slopes and everything, but still. First of all, I'm not up there, and I also don't ski, or at least not for any other purpose than to make the rest of the skiing crowd howling with laughter at my outrageous awkwardness. I was never given the opportunity to learn to ski properly, and so the first time I did it, it was around the age of 17 or 18, and by God, I wasn't a talent. All in all, I don't understand the winter rush that people get. I'm slightly envious of the excitement they feel, but I don't understand it. To me, it's just one big hell of getting dressed in 10,000 layers of 4 pairs of socks, and the whole snowboard or ski gear pretty much feels like having to turn into an astronaut for the day. It's just not worth it. Then the sweating inside the 10,000 layers once your body warms up? Not cool. And of course, the minute you take a break and cool off, you're freezing and catching pneumonia. And the ski pass that costs $80? Are you kidding? Other people live off that kind of money for a month. So the day before yesterday was the first day in 3 weeks that I saw the sun again. Even if just in a very milky, weak sort of version, but hey, I'm not complaining, I'm just saying. For 3 weeks, we sat in nonstop below 0 temperatures, earth frozen still, ice on the street, gray sky, and I kind of felt like a baby bonsai that was accidentally put in the freezer. And yes, that's not the only reason why my spirits were as low as they were these past few weeks. Of course it isn't. I felt down and empty and this weird mixture of powerlessness and despair because of the state of the world, really. I mean, we're all together here on this precious little blue speck of a ball in this inexplicably expanding universe, hurling through space. And instead of holding on to each other and taking care of one another and taking care of that magic little dot we're sitting upon, we're fighting each other. We're destroying the planet. Capitalism exploits us, our souls, and our planet to an increasingly shameless extent, which is honestly almost too terrifying to fully comprehend. And still, people are tracking and counting calories as if that kept the world from falling apart. Still, the majority of women think of it as bonding with each other when they police each other's and other people's bodies and or diets. And still, ever more girls and women and men are wasting their lives looking for new, hurtful ways of manipulating their bodies just to look like something they're not. and hoping that this would miraculously bring them happiness. Oh, man. But of course, none of them really feel better about themselves. None of them really feel comfortable in their skins. Most of them still don't want to wake up to how completely misled most of us have been by this body-worshipping diet culture around us. But the truth is, none of this has any real meaning. In the grand scheme of things, none of this has anything to do with lovability or real connection. Quite the contrary. We all have this one life and time is ticking away. So when we look at it with a little more perspective, doesn't it all get spectacularly incomprehensible? Because all we really want, all what we're really hungry for is real connection. A connection that requires authenticity, vulnerability, sharing, and not hiding behind veneer smiles and walls of protection. It's sad and terrifying for me to see how now more than ever, people seem to care more about television and celebrities and their bodies and relationships and diets than their own lives and caring for their own relationships. Seems like we're all running after invisible carrots while staring at a soulless screen all day, be it the phone, the computer, or the television screen. Most of us are not really listening to each other anymore, but always quick to compare, to judge, to separate, really. And while we are busy doing that, the earth is screaming, and the powers of the world, they are silently laughing at how tractable we have become. The politicians on the world stage are demonstrating it right now. They show us how easy it is to take our personal liberties away, to shrink individual rights and privacy, to annihilate rights that have been fought for so long, and how easy it is to just cut funds for education, for social justice issues, for healthcare, how easy it is to feed people false truths, and how easy to rouse fear and hate against everything and anything that isn't exactly like them. So that's what's been weighing heavy on my soul lately. And I want to tell you all this because I think we have to wake up from our trances and look beyond our personal little security fence and to establish more real connection on this planet. Inclusivity is a non-negotiable, if you ask me. And I will try my best to inspire more of that by my little mission here. And I don't want to let the hate and fear in the world paralyze me into silence. So once again, I take you on a hopefully inspiring ride today. And simply because we can use a little warmth and sunshine today, let's turn the sunny side up, quite literally. Today on the Life Unrestricted podcast, I'm going to call Australia. But before we do, let me be a little more vulnerable for a second, because ranting about the state of the world, that's one thing, but I don't want to hide behind ranting. I want to let every one of you know that my heart is also very open today. The feeling that is stronger than all this despair is deeply felt gratitude. I cannot always really feel it. Sometimes my own fear is greater than gratitude. But when I can feel it, as I did today, I often cry. And today I cried because quite unexpectedly I got a notification from someone on Facebook who started a thread thanking me for making this podcast. And she did that in such kind words that it just hit me. The way she expressed how much this podcast is changing her life, that has sucker punched me right in my marshmallow heart. And in the best way possible, too. I don't know, it's hard to admit how vulnerable I really am, but heck, I am. And probably most of you have known right from the start that deep down, I'm a puppy in disguise. So thank you for knowing that. And thank you for listening. And thank you for supporting this show on Patreon. For those of you who would like to show this podcast some love in this way, please go check out my page on the Patreon platform. You can find it at patreon.com/lifeunrestricted, and you can make a donation if you wish. I'm, of course, infinitely grateful for your help in my mission to make women see another truth than the one they have been allowed to see so far. The truth that they are good enough as they are, and that by manipulating their bodies and wasting all their precious energy trying to look a certain way is a way of subscribing to the idea that they are, in fact, inferior in their original version. So let's uncover what this myth is built upon and how we can stop perpetuating it. In any case, I love you all for being on this journey with me, and I really, really appreciate your support. And now, Australia. In today's episode, I'm going to talk to Fiona Sutherland, a dietitian and nutritionist from Melbourne. She is the director of the Body Positive Australia, which offers therapy, yoga, and retreats to the whole community, and also of the Mindful Dietitian, which offers mindfulness and client-centered practice, training opportunities, and information specifically to dietitians worldwide. Fiona is a specialist in eating disorders, mostly binge eating disorder, eating behavior, and body image. Fiona has recently been appointed to the Australia and New Zealand Academy of Eating Disorders Board, where she aims to strengthen a voice for recovery and health at every size. She's also, as she says herself, a professional kid wrangler of 2 boys aged 5 and 7, and she is currently halfway through her yoga teacher training. She is passionate about how we can help everyone in every body live in peace within this very brainwashed diet culture of ours. Before we started recording, we were talking about how time flies, about aging, and we soon found out that we were both born in the 70s and are now over 40, and for some reason we ended up talking about birthday cake. I then told her just how many years I never allowed myself to have cake. Not on my own or anyone else's birthday, because I was just so afraid of gaining weight. Secretly, of course, I was dying to eat all the birthday cakes in the world, and I ended up saying no to countless parties and celebrations just so that I wasn't tempted all the time. Her answer made me realize once again how much we lose when all we are focused on is weight.
It's really tough for people that have a difficult relationship with food, isn't it? And then I often say to my clients, it's a really good sign if you can notice from year to year how you change in the way that you're able to accept and share and celebrate with food. So welcome to life.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to even keep track of. I was just recently really thinking back when this whole thing started, because I ate abundantly until I was like 20 and then started to notice that my body wasn't accepted and I was being, I wasn't being desired by boys, and all my other girlfriends were surrounded by boys. They attracted them like flies, and I was always the one who had to give out their number, but then was left on the side. So I started dieting. But in the beginning, it was pretty harmless because I just cut out certain stuff and just said no to one thing or the other. But I certainly had cookies and birthday cakes and everything. So it is sort of sneaky because it doesn't start off terrible right away, because then probably nobody would be dieting. But it started out really fine, and then I lost weight, I got the approval, and then it seemed like a reasonable idea to crank up the exercise a little bit here, and then maybe say no to bread for a while, and why even have cake? This is certainly not good, and then cut out this and cut out that, and then, over the years, all of a sudden you're sacrificing relationships, celebrations, holidays, whatever, just in order to pursue this insane goal, just probably because you're afraid you wouldn't be accepted if you were yourself. So it's really crazy to see how this prison cell, sort of, how it gets smaller and smaller. And it's also probably good because at one stage you have the opportunity to wake up and ask yourself, do I really want to live like a prisoner? When I'm the one that's keeping myself in prison, that's pretty silly. And that's the opportunity to wake up. And that's the journey I've started like a year ago or so.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's
that's
hard.
exactly. Oh, absolutely. Because I think that unless we're willing to acknowledge that at the start, it all started off harmless, and actually we were, attempting to meet our needs, and we were attempting to fulfill that part of us that felt maybe lost or rejected or left out. But unfortunately, as you say, even things like, food diarising, it seems harmless, but for some people, it's never going to be harmless. Mm-hmm. Well, it starts off harmless, but then turns bad. Or, like weighing, for a vast majority of people, what starts off feeling like you're staying in control, it actually contributes to, you feeling really out of control. So one thing that I try to help people acknowledge and have compassion for themselves is to acknowledge that at the start, when it all feels good and when you feel like, no, I'm doing the right thing, this is good, it's all going along well, that's actually, perpetuates the continuation of that behaviour, because you're just trying to replicate that good feeling, that feeling that comes with feeling like you've achieved something. And unfortunately, as you say, the walls tend to close in on you, and then it's like, oh shit, how did I get here again?
Yeah, totally. It seems like you've steered away from your true, authentic self so far that you cannot even imagine how it once was when you felt free, or was there ever a time when you did feel free, and how to reach that. It suddenly becomes such a habit and such a compulsion and a thing you think you have to do, that it's almost inconceivable to just let those go. And it's really hard, because the minute you change something and you loosen those reins, or the terrorism against yourself, then the inner gremlin is quick on his feet, yelling at you that you're a failure and that you're just making excuses to let yourself go and the whole thing. And I realized that I'm pretty lucky for having thrown out the scale a while back, because it started to become a thing that I really let decide whether I was allowed to feel good in a day or not. Now I think it's the most evil of measurement devices out there. Why weigh?
Absolutely. Yeah. Rubbish bin, meet scale, scale, meet rubbish bin, or maybe
love it.
Lots of my clients, I've been, so lucky to participate in some of these destroying activities with various instruments like hammers and stuff, and it's actually a joyful experience, because it's a celebration and it's a grieving process as well. It's a letting go of something that felt comfortable or that felt familiar. And as you say, when you're letting go of things that feel familiar and have that the perception of keeping you in control, then it feels really frightening. And that's where, having a really good therapist who's got your back, and any family and friends that just going to be really gentle with you as you kind of, navigate this new way of being.
I just had this fantasy pop into my head of actually destroying my elliptical with a hammer. I don't know if that would be reasonable, but it's just standing in my third room in my apartment, and it calls out to me every day like, hey, you got some food to burn off, don't you? Hey, you want to have a nice dinner? Then you better earn it. And I keep falling into this trap. It's like exercise is the last frontier for a lot of people. And that's where diet mentality is the hardest to beat. Like, I don't know, it's just the fantasy was popping into my head of actually, why don't you destroy that thing and just go for walks? But I don't think I'm at this point yet.
If you're ever ready to fulfill that fantasy, then I will be getting myself on a plane straight out to Switzerland, because I do not want to miss that.
I don't even know if I could really destroy the thing, because it's a really good quality style type of huge monster It's actually also a misery maker, because who wants to stand in a closed, small room, moving away and counting the minutes or the seconds? Like, I must have been on this for 45 minutes, and damn it says I've been only on it for 4. What the hell is going on? Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing is there's this thing called eBay. I don't know if you've heard of it in Switzerland.
Yes.
Yep. But then again, you think, well, do I really want to expose somebody else to the misery of this metal object, this metal inanimate object that seems to have this power to tell me what I can and can't do? Whereas, in fact, what that unfortunately expensive and good quality elliptical needs is to be thrown off the nearest bridge. Let's face it, So anyway, I look forward to hearing about your progress with your elliptical relationship then.
Oh, God, you're challenging me. But it's certainly good, because really the idea seems so absurd. I could literally hear in my mind the people going, why would you want to destroy an elliptical? This is actually a good thing. You have to be fit. You have to be blah, blah. And it seems like such an odd thing to do, just the same as like destroying scales. A lot of people I know are just dependent on that, and they are going to the gym regularly and killing themselves on some machines. And it seems like somewhere the healthy relationship to movement has been destroyed for us, really, by diet culture, because it just made it an effort we have to do, and the most efficient way and the most calorie burning way, and get your ass down to the gym, sort of the imperative of doing that, so that it sounds really, why is Merit even talking about destroying her elliptical? She's crazy. But I think you'll get exactly where I'm coming from, because I see this is also keeping me stuck and miserable. And even though I'm really fit, it keeps me obsessed. I prioritize it over a lot of other things, which is insane, because it doesn't hug me back. It doesn't tell me it loves me. It doesn't cook for me. It doesn't do anything. It just stands there and is mean.
Absolutely, yeah. It doesn't even have legs that can walk to you, and as you say, it doesn't hug you. But I think what it does do is, and when we can acknowledge what it does do for us, it gives you a sense of maybe comfort,
or control.
And control, exactly. So I think when we're able to acknowledge what we're getting from something and be super clear, like be really clear and really honest with ourselves about that, and also really acknowledge what we're missing out on. Like you were saying, maybe you're turning to the elliptical when actually you need a hug, or, you need to chat to a friend, or actually some time out, or, all of us from time to time have difficulty meeting our needs. Mm-hmm. But when we're able to, I just really feel strongly that when we're able to build up our skills and meeting our needs in a way that really honours our true needs, and do you know what? That's not easy. Like, if you're lonely, then the cure or the fix for loneliness, it's not that easy to access. You can't just magic up a relationship or a partner or a friendship group. But you can certainly, that elliptical is in the next room, So it's, some of our true needs are much, much harder to fulfill. But unfortunately what happens is when we turn to exercise, when we turn to restriction, when we turn to food, when we turn to a variety of other things that really hurt us more than help us, what happens is it just blocks us from being able to understand our true needs, because we're too busy turning our heads towards what we think we need and what will help keep us centered, whereas it's actually throwing us off center. It's throwing us further away from where we need to be. But our true needs actually, they need us to be strong and courageous, and they need us to be able to have the skills to be able to sit with those urges and sit with those temptations. They can call so loudly and seductively, So I don't blame anybody for being really seduced by exercise and restriction and binging and other kinds of behaviours. And you have to feel really ready, Mm-hmm. So one day that elliptical is going off that bridge, girlfriend.
I'm living on the 6th floor. That'd be fun to just throw the motherfucker out off the balcony when no one is walking down on the street, of course. But And, the real viciousness of the thing is that it's not really, I might be able to detect a feeling of loneliness, or I'd love to have a hug or a relationship, or I don't know, a certain feeling of inner peace. But the elliptical, or, the idea of the whole thing is promising me that if I do that first, then the other thing will be more available to me. So it's like with diets. They promise you that once you master them, once you succeed to finally lose those X pounds, then, and with me, it's like, yeah, but if you stay trim and sort of fit and that's popular, then you would surely easier get a hug and easier get a sense of peace and easier blah, blah, relationship or whatever. So the thing is not that I have to first detect what my real need is, because I know that already, but it's that I still believe that it's somewhere behind there. So I make my happiness and the fulfillment of my needs conditional on whether or not I do this or that or this or that. You know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean. So you're measuring your
worthiness.
Your worthiness to even start along that path. Worthiness is tricky, because the eating disorder loves to base our appearance very closely to worth and value, and loves to tell people that that your worth and your value is really tightly bound to your appearance. And I don't think I've ever heard anybody say anything apart from, I don't value others on their appearance, but it can feel different when it's your own experience. It can feel really different. And so working from that place of worthiness is the very center of eating disorder recovery, is, starting from a place of just innate worth. I'm worthy because I exist. I often say to people, why do people grieve newborn babies? Or why do people grieve when a baby that's not even born doesn't survive? Why do we grieve for that? That baby has done nothing. That child has simply existed. It may have existed, maybe not even in this world, but we have value in human existence. And I think it's, our very, very completely fucked up culture, it just sends us all these messages about
the conditions of worthiness. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly right. And we have to look like this, and we have to do this, and not only look like this and do this, but to a certain level. You can't just do it to this level, because that's not good enough. So we need to decide for ourselves, what is our own good enough? What is my own sense of enoughness? And I think when we can define that for ourselves, see ourselves as human, flawed humans, not perfect, none of us are perfect, we can get just a little crack into the fact that, okay, so I don't have to be perfect in order to feel good enough to live a decent and meaningful life. Okay. Yeah, so I really believe really strongly in that stuff.
And the example with the baby is actually incredibly effective, because when you think about it, it's true. Even if they didn't ever enter the world, you really grieve them because they were alive for some time. And that's never what we think about ourselves, right? Like the sheer aliveness or the sheer me being here is enough. That has certainly been brainwashed out of our heads a long time ago. So it seems almost silly to think that way, but it's actually at the basis of everything. We should be enough just because we are, with our quirks and styles and humors and not humors and but that's a real stretch for someone who has been living on these terms of the outside culture. You have to be busy, you have to be successful, you have to prove that you're helping other people, you have to prove that you're worthy of the air that you're breathing here, because we're not taught that we're worthy just because we are. So it's a really, really good example, that baby example.
Thank you. Yeah, you're so welcome. Gosh, it's awesome.
I'm glad I have you on the phone. And it's really awesome. I mean, we're meeting halfway between Switzerland and Australia. It's incredible. So thank you for being here. I probably didn't even say that. So thank you for coming on.
Oh my gosh, Merritt, it's absolutely my pleasure. Absolutely.
We started off like crazy. It seems like we're hitting it off pretty fine. So tell us about you, Fiona. Do you remember how you felt around body and food when you were still little, Fiona?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So as you know, I'm now in my early 40s. And so you and I are very familiar with the 80s and the dreadful fashion and the dreadful hair and the dreadful diets, right? So I grew up in a family, very kind of middle class, and as would probably be typical for someone of our generation, Merritt, I grew up with a mum who dieted and probably more influential for me than her diets, although I do have one quite funny / sad story to share with you and your listeners about diets. I think more than that, what I learned within my immediate family is probably more about bodies and what bodies were acceptable, what kind of bodies weren't acceptable. And the interesting thing is that I grew up in a smaller body. If I look at photos of me as a toddler, primary school, older primary school, you know, I have always had a small to medium kind of size body. So my younger sister, who's 2 years younger than me, she had, I guess, a medium to maybe a slightly larger than medium compared to her peers' body. And we were always kind of a similar size, and I was older. As kids, I was very acutely aware that my sister had a body that was frowned upon in my family. And it's really interesting, Merritt, because, you know, I learned a lot from observing. I really learned about this thing. I want to share this word with you, which I love. And it's not my word, but it's called thinxiety. You know, like anxiety, but thinxiety, right? And basically what it is it's the cultural and baseless fear that vigilance is required to maintain our body weight and health. So I think this is what I learned as a kid. I think I learned thinxiety. I learned that it was important to control your body. It was expected, actually, as a female.
Yes.
That you managed, controlled, or that you remained on top of your body, or not physically, of course, but that you somehow were in this constant state of vigilance and monitoring. And the interesting thing is that, can I tell you this funny story now?
Sure.
It's a good one. So I do remember my mum used all the classic dieting phrases, you know, good, bad, mostly about herself though.
Oh, really?
Not so much about food, but about herself. So I'm being good today, I've been naughty today, you know, all that really classic, you know, diety type of stuff. And I remember just feeling a bit confused about the whole thing and thinking, what the fuck is she on about? Like, seriously, I really don't know what she's talking about. I didn't get it, you know. We didn't have a lot of kind of delicious, yummy foods in the house as a child, and I remember yearning for those. I remember being at friends' houses and they would have cake or chocolate or biscuits or just really yummy, delicious food. And I remember feeling like, we don't have those foods, and I think I knew why, but I didn't understand it. I think that was the tricky thing. Now, this is one of my most vivid memories. I think I was about 9 years old or so. And my mum was doing one of these diet programs where you had to go in and weigh maybe weekly or so. And it wasn't Weight Watchers or one of those, but it was something like that. And they in this school classroom, and for some reason my dad must have been away for work or something, and my mum took my sister and I along, like, hello, mistake number one, you never take your kids along to a diet program, right? So anyway, I remember standing up the back of this classroom, and there was about, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 women only. I distinctly remember that. Women. And the leader of this, you know, Captain Diet, as we shall call her. She said, right, ladies, everybody up the front, you know, who either didn't lose weight or who gained weight. And do you know what they did, Merit? It still makes me just, ugh. They made them dance around and sing this song, which I don't remember what the song was about. I don't remember what it was, but I just remember sitting there and what I was observing is only what I've come to realise as an adult, and particularly as a dietitian and a nutrition therapist. I've come to realise that what I observed was body shaming. And I only, as an adult, have the words for what I saw as a child. And so what I was really watching is body shaming in action. And it was demonstrated really strongly to me, you know, that if you let your body go or you don't find a way to stay in control of it, you will end up dancing around and look maybe like a fool in front of other people. So it's a very poignant memory for me, and I can't help but think, looking back, that was really prominent in shaping the reason why I feel so fucking angry about diet culture. I didn't have the meaning or words for it back then, and now I do, and I think I really understand why I had such a massive reaction to that. So
yeah, sure, because you felt like as if your mother was being forced to attack herself. I mean, the fantasy that I had when you said it was like a few women in the front having to dance and like, I'm a pig because I ate too much and that's why I gained weight and I've been bad sort of thing. Like this should not even be legal.
Right. Do you know what? I think you're probably pretty much on the mark there. I think it pretty much was something like that.
Shit.
Yeah, right. So it was this externalized example of what people do to themselves.
Mm-hmm. And no wonder everybody has this thin-siety, or how do you call it? Thin-siety that you spoke about earlier. I mean, no wonder. I mean, when it's become you're being made fun of, or even you have been forced to make fun of yourself, of course, then weight becomes your internalized social currency. And you see that people, even yourself, everybody is being treated differently depending on their size, which is already proof of ongoing weight stigmatization for all of those people who still say that this is not happening. Get real, dudes. Bigger people are bullied by others. And as you said before, thinner people who have been maybe weight suppressing for years or think they are just lucky having thinner bodies, they are living with this fear and maybe going on diets as if they were going out of style, just because they're living in this internalized misery and this paralyzing fear of weight gain. So how did your mother liberate herself from that? Or did she tolerate that, being treated like this?
Yeah, well, I think back then, I think she thought that she was doing the right thing by, you know, attempting to control her weight. And certainly I don't recall anybody around her saying, what the hell are you doing? Or talking about the consequences of dieting. I think, to be honest, like diet companies love to perpetuate, I think there was this idea that, oh, it's harmless. You know, it's harmless. We know that diets are anything but harmless. They are extremely harmful for a vast majority of people, and can destroy lives. So I think that, you know, what I really have learned over the years is that body anxiety is not just for people in certain bodies, that it is,
everybody,
you know, body.
Yeah.
Absolutely, regardless. You know, if you live in a smaller body, there's this idea of, oh, well, just don't get fat. Or if you do live in a larger body, it's like, well, what are you going to do about that type thing? Mm-hmm. And it's just so fucking ridiculous because, you know, at the end of the day, we're all we're all human beings, and we should all feel worthy enough to live full and meaningful lives in the body that we have. And we should all be, particularly these days with kids need to be sent that really strong message that you can feel good in the body that you have, and that you can take care of the body you have. And your life will not be limited by your body. Your life can be limited by the way you feel about your body, but that all bodies have a place and that we welcome that. So, yeah, and then the next stage of my life, interestingly, sorry to go back just a sec. I think Mum stopped dieting because I think she got a bit bored by it, to be honest.
Good for her.
I know, right? I think she was never hardcore, as in she didn't do it on, off, but certainly enough to have influence over me, and definitely enough to have influence over my poor sister, who was really the recipient. She was really the recipient of my mum's attempts to control her weight. And I was this onlooker, and I wasn't like a passive onlooker. I was soaking in all those messages, even though they were not directed at me. I mean, it was very lucky for me that I actually had some protective factors around me in terms of some sports coaches and some friends, and probably some maybe personality factors that really helped protect me against being lured down that same hole. So, yeah, I think...
What happened to your sister?
Well, interestingly, she was carted off to some diet program in her early teenage years, and she certainly engaged in some pretty full-on dieting behaviour. But then for her, she kind of gave that away in her early 20s and hasn't dieted since, which, again, I find fascinating. It's like,
Totally. She's a strong one then.
Oh, yeah, she's amazing to have escaped those clutches, Yeah, it really is amazing. And I've thought a lot about, what is it about people who escape those clutches? And what is it about people who don't?
What is it?
And the answer is, I don't know. I think it's just such a complex array of factors, including, our personality type and, maybe relationships and friendships we find ourselves in, what we get exposed to. Yeah, gosh, it's a mystery and yet it's not. There are some obvious things, but then other things you just think, oh, fuck, it was really bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. Difficult friendships and maybe some real sadness, maybe some trauma. So, oh my gosh. Well, you know what, Merritt? When we have the answer to this, then we'll have the answers to the whole world. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, probably. And I think you're going to be the one who finds the answer first, because I really have subconsciously, voluntarily given my power away, as this diet brainwashing just burned a hole into my self-worth. As right from the start, when I was 4 or 5, and then ongoing into my 40s until I am now starting to wake up. So, I mean, it is the case that most of those who are weight suppressing or weight loss pursuers as such, they are letting others decide what they should eat and how they should look and what defines our worth. So, I mean, how can we get our power back and our agency back and see that we are worthy just the way we are? When we have bought into this toxic paradigm forever, it seems like, suddenly have to learn Chinese when you're 43 and you're going, what? It's pretty hard. So how do you help your clients?
Yeah, I think, as you know, it's not a quick fix. And I think when we are in a culture that has lots of quick fix promises, and if you only do this and you'll feel like that, and it's like a one-step wonder, right? The magic pill, the magic bullet. But recovery is not like that. The way I describe it is like 1,000 fairy lights, tiny little steps. It's all the tiny little steps that make up that big, massive fairy lights that eventually lights your way. Look, in my experience in working with people with eating disorders for about well, it's well over 15 years now. It's the little things that count. It's the way that you can gradually crack open your authentic self and the way that you actually want to be in the world rather than hiding yourself away from the world. And actually, from vast majority of people that I have worked with, it's little fairy steps. It really is.
Can you describe them like a typical development of healing so that we have an idea what you mean by those little steps?
Definitely. Typically the eating disorder demands big steps or nothing. Do it, don't do it at all type thing.
Yes,
and then when you
totally.
when you do say, okay, right, that's it, I will do it, well, then it's there, ready to beat you up again. So I think I don't define steps for people. I let them define it for themselves. And I think that when we can find kindness and self-compassion to be able to treat ourselves as human beings, then I think we are able to find little steps worthwhile. I'll give you some examples, and it's not up to me to define whether this is a little step or a big step. So if somebody is able to go out for dinner and not call the restaurant ahead and find out exactly what's on the menu, that would be a step. That would be like a fairy light. And that needs to probably happen 2, 4, 10, 20, 30 times, before it builds that confidence and you get really persistent and consistent with your behaviours so that becomes your new normal, I guess. Or that you order from a menu without making any adjustments to the menu, or you order from the menu without asking the waiter about what ingredients are in there. That is a step. So for me, success is not defined by, for example, whether you end up binging or not. Success is defined by whether you're able to bring awareness to your behaviours. And when you can bring awareness to your behaviours, therein lies choice. And I think choice is power for us. Choice is power, and it enables us to have true agency over life. Over those little choices that we can make each and every day that can help us come closer to the person that we want to be, rather than, getting trapped in stupid diet land, which keeps us, not living.
Even just realizing that we do have a choice, because for a long time we've just been living that way because we thought that we had to. And even just realizing, oh, it's in my head, it's my thoughts, and I could actually do the opposite. Feels like falling off a cliff. Like I am not supposed to go against my thoughts. But the way out of this is actually going against the thoughts. And I really want to know what a little step might be in terms of exercise, because as we talked about, this is often the thing that gets tackled last. And even for me, I can eat a lot and start implementing new foods again slowly, and I eat a lot. But this exercise thing seems to be like the other side of the equation that keeps me in this diet mentality. And a lot of people, if they admit it, they exercise to just earn food or burn off food, and they do it for calorie reasons and not really for enjoyment reasons at all. And some of us even have lost our periods and we still do it. So that shows quite a lot of fear still there. So what would be a little step? Why I'm asking is because, we are living in a world where we constantly get the message that we need to be fit and we need to be healthy and we need to exercise a lot and we need to be fit looking, sort of, and that we must not be fat. And we get this stream of pictures where none of us, 95% of the population, is represented at all. So we are permanently tempted to fall back, permanently tempted to, maybe cut out certain foods and maybe just go back and exercise a little more just to keep things in check, quote unquote. So, you know what I mean? That's why I'm asking what the little steps are in terms of exercising.
Yeah, totally. There's a number of different ways you can look at it, I guess. One would be to create awareness of those urges to engage in exercise, whether that's for compensation or to earn or burn, as you say, and to create awareness around that urge in and of itself. Because again, when we're able to create awareness, we actually realize that we have choice. Now, I'm not saying that choice is easy, because it's actually not, as you say. It's not an easy choice, and I hope I'm not kind of coming across as just do this and just do that, because no. I'm fully aware that's not how it is.
Feels terrible. Yeah.
Right. And sometimes we don't want to create awareness. We just want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So the willingness to create awareness is actually a difficult first step, but it is actually a first step, because it's only then that we can either decide to engage in exercise or not. But there's a lot of steps in between as well. It's not as simple as, well, just don't do it. Of course, it's never that simple. But it's more understanding, what does it feel like when I'm getting those feelings that I want to walk into the other room and get onto that elliptical, for example, or I want to head to the gym, or blah, 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 whatever your exercise of choice is. Noticing your patterns and noticing your cues to exercise, your cues to restrict, your cues to binge, noticing what they are inside of you and outside of you too, because like you said, conversations, they happen outside of us. Social media, we see them with our eyes. That happens outside of us. But we also have an inner response as well. So an inner response might be, that we get that, diet conversations make us anxious. So, it leads us to decide, oh, well, I don't need lunch today, or disordered eating behavior like that. So I think developing awareness of our cues. Look, some people call them triggers, but for me, I don't really like that word very much. But where people use the word triggers, I use the word cues. I don't know, it's just a phrase that I find much more neutral, I guess, so that we're not immediately drawn into that judgmental place, that we can stay curious just long enough to understand a little bit about our experience. And as I was saying before, it's not about not exercising or not binging or not restricting. In order to move in that direction, we need to remove judgment of those behaviours. So when we can say, I understand what led to this urge to exercise, and I'm going to really think about that. I'm going to spend some time thinking about it. But I still ended up exercising, I encourage people to step away from judging themselves if they did end up binging, exercising, restricting, because actually those neural pathways are very well worn. So I just find it so interesting that kindness, and openness seems to be the way forward. So, yeah, what do you think?
I think that you are spot on with your description of the cues or triggers, because I find it's helpful to frame them as invitations. Like, something is happening right now. What is it? And for me, in terms of like exercise, for example, this is a big one for me. When I really think about it, it is deep down, it is about safety. The thought that comes up is like, no, I don't have to do it, but better make sure. Better stay safe than sorry, and might just do it today. It's safer. So it's always a thing about the illusion of being safer or less at risk of rejection or less at risk of the old trauma happening again, something like this. And I also heard you say about looking at things without judgment, and that's a good opportunity to bring up what came up in a group that I am involved with. And a woman there, she just wrote the other day that she is doing much better, but she still gets those emotional eating attacks, and she knows she shouldn't do that, and she should get this under control, but it happens all the time. And oh God, she shouldn't do it, she knows, but somehow she just can't. And the thing that popped up in my mind is like, that's the problem. We're judging ourselves for emotional eating. And when I talked to Isabel Fox and Duke, she said, hey, guys, this is not heroin. This is just another way we try to soothe ourselves. And when we judge it, and when we make this a bad thing, I think she said, when we villainize it, it'll boomerang right back and make us binge. It's so interesting that really everyone who's a pro in this field says, don't judge. Just say, okay, now the only way I know how to help me is eat emotionally, even though I'm not hungry. And that's okay. And that this will eventually prevent a binge, as opposed to making ourselves feel bad about it. And then that would create a binge. That's not normal for us to think. But when we realize it, and I've heard it so many times from so many professionals, that it starts to really make sense. Yes, of course. I've been judging everything I do or don't do, and therefore it just persisted all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you know, if I could distill it down to one little phrase, it would be
Give it
a
to
little
us.
more. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Ready? It would be this: a little more kindness, a little less judgment. And I really think that is how recovery happens.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing magic in it, is it? Sorry, everybody. There's nothing magic in that.
That's why dieting is a lot easier than actually not dieting, because dieting promises that silver bullet, and you find out that it's not really keeping its promises. And the real way out of this is actually not easy, because there is no magic bullet. You have to deal with yourself and your own inner demons, and, trying to build up that sense of being worthy just for who you are. That's so much harder than just going, fuck it, I'm going to restrict bread again for half a year. Fuck it, I'm going to run like a maniac for the next few months. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, this stuff it's actually really hard work, but it's the hard work that makes life meaningful,
That makes a difference in the end.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So with my business partner, Sarah, at Body Positive Australia, we run therapy groups, and we've been doing this for almost 12 years now with women who have binge eating disorder or bulimia. And we have run this on a Saturday morning every week. And the women, I think, universally would say that self-compassion is absolutely the most important part. We can get ourselves all caught up in concern about our weight and concern about our body and concern about our eating behavior and all kinds of very tricky things, actually. But with self-compassion and kindness, it just makes that journey a little smoother, a little bit more tolerable, and you learn some pretty important things along the way too.
Yes, totally. And the crux is that most disordered eaters, or people who have certain types of eating disorders, be it exercise bulimia or anorexia or binge eating, whatever it is, those people have a complete lack of self-compassion. It's even a foreign concept. When I first heard about it, I was like, yeah, what? I'm just being all fuzzy and nice to myself and then get myself off the hook, and that's it? I can't just make up new rules here. We have to have some order and discipline here. So this is not just, kindergarten sort of fluffy, yeah, you're fine. So I was really resistant to that, because it was against everything that I learned when I was little. Like, you have to earn your stuff and be nice and keep up your hard work. Do stuff, soldier on. There was no room for self-compassion at all. So, of course, my disordered eating could get out of hand because I had no way to be kind to myself. So,
absolutely. Yeah, the irony of self-compassion is that when you are kinder to yourself, you get more shit done, So
it sounds so weird. Yeah, it still sounds weird, but I guess you're right. So how would you teach me self-compassion if I came to you and I was in a totally stuck place and resisting the idea? How do you even get through to your clients?
Do you know what, Merritt? I think that there's more to be gained from role modeling than we give it credit for.
Oh, good point.
So I feel deeply committed to treating all my clients with absolute 100% respect and compassion. And I use the words of self-compassion towards my clients and towards myself. So, for example, if I am sick and I have to cancel a session, or I'm running late, or I don't know, just something happens, like life, like life happens, or I make a mistake. And I do. I make mistakes often. I'm a human being. Mm-hmm. So I try to role model self-compassion in the language that I use with my clients and the way I behave and I act. And I think that when we're able to use those words that show that we have kindness for our own selves and kindness towards ourselves when we really fuck up, that I think people learn a lot from that, to be honest. Because I know, again, in our group therapy, we don't talk about self-compassion until about week 7. And by then, all these women, they've totally got it. They totally understand what it is and what it looks like, because we try to role model it. So when we do start talking about it, they're like, oh, yep, totally, yep. Look, they're not necessarily doing it towards themselves, because that's one skill that really needs to be developed. But they're like, yeah, no, we get this. So it's taught me a lot. It's really taught me a lot about how I can embrace my own imperfections and then role model that and be kind when, life throws curveballs my way as well. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn.
Mm-hmm. And also role modeling ties back to our old stories. Like, we have all had role models, some of them not so good. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way, but rather they didn't know any better. So we were basically taught to be strict to ourselves and be concerned about our weight and et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, this is a really hard thing. If you're still battling with that yourself, then it's hard to role model this in a good way to your child. And, children just pick up on your energy and they just will emulate your behavior anyway. So let me phrase the question in a somehow funny way, because you're a mother of 2, and I'm sure you have some great ideas for all of those who have little ones in their care. So if you had been my mother, what would you have taught me?
Oh, my Lord. Well, I would like to think that I would teach you how to value your whole self, how to develop tolerance when things don't go the way you wish, whether that's a basketball match or a test or exam at school or maybe friendships. I think that building some tolerance and resilience for life stuff, I feel as a parent really strongly about that with my kids. So I've got 2 boys who are almost 5 and 7, and they're quite different to each other. It's really interesting to see yourself reflected in your child. And sometimes these lessons can be a little bit tough too. They're not easy lessons when you see something of yourself that you maybe is not your favorite part of yourself reflected in your own child. Oh, dear. So if you were my child, I'd like to think that you would develop resilience and tolerance for yourself and others, and you will learn to celebrate who you are as a person and learn to embrace all those parts of you, the parts that are culturally acceptable and the parts that maybe are not so much, because an anxious child can sometimes be frowned upon, in our culture. And I feel like that's such a shame, because kids who are, who think and who are considerate and kind and thoughtful and, real deep thinkers are often anxious children. And rather than say there's something wrong with that, we need to celebrate those beautiful qualities that make them such amazing members of our community. So, for my kids, this is my aim. I want to raise my kids to be great housemates, because I think good housemates, they are dependable, they're reliable, they're consistent, they share, and they put the toilet seat up or down depending on who they're sharing with. So I think if anybody can travel the world with either of my kids or live with them as housemates as adults, I think I've done my job pretty well.
Great. But suppose there is somebody out there who still struggles with body image, as most of my listeners, including myself, do. then is there even a way to not pass that on to our children, even
Absolutely.
subconsciously? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Look, a lot of it is subconscious, to be honest. So a lot of my clients are mothers and fathers. They are parents, and they often seek help, seek therapy because of this exact concern that you're mentioning, Merit, because they have felt that they haven't had a good relationship with food and eating and their bodies for most of their life or part of their life. I mean, any part of your life is not okay, let alone a majority of your life. So for some people, this is what brings them to therapy in the first place. Or they're thinking about having a baby and they're like, whoa, I think I better put this shit to bed, right, before I even think about having a baby. So this is probably at least 50% of my clients. So, okay, so just say you were interviewing me for a magazine story, and it was like, okay, top tips to not pass your own stuff on. These would be my top tips. Tip number 1, aim to heal yourself, because when our own disconnection from food and eating in our body, when that continues, there are ways that we role model in ways that we don't want to be role modeling. You know, it might not be exactly what we say, it might not be exactly what we do, but this body anxiety stuff, I don't know, it has this way of just seeping on through in our lives in really weird and unpredictable ways. So my top tip is get yourself sorted. And I don't mean that in a mean way or a judgmental way. All I mean is, you know, reach out for therapy, acknowledge when you're struggling, and be real about it too, you know, because a lot of people say, oh, I don't diet, I'm just, you know, eating clean or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's dieting. Like, make no mistake about it, sister. That's dieting, you know, or, oh, I'm just cutting out this or I'm just cutting out that. Oh, you know, da-da-da-da. I'm like, no, that's still dieting. So
as over-exercising is dieting as well. As hard it is to admit, but it's true.
Well, this is how I describe it. Any behaviours that you do with the express intention or purpose of changing your body is part of a diet. So number 1, heal yourself first. Number 2, I would say, what's your language? Don't talk about food as good, bad, right, wrong, should, shouldn't, naughty, nice, etc., in that all or nothing fashion that is so typical of dieting. Just really be mindful of the way you speak. My third tip is, what's your language around bodies? So being mindful of how you greet people. When you greet your girlfriend in the street, do you comment on her appearance every time you meet somebody in the street? Oh my gosh, oh my God, you look amazing. Or, oh, what have you done to your hair? Or even if you're saying, oh, I love that dress, what I'm not saying is never say that, because you know what, we're all human and I love certain things on my friends and I will comment on that. But it's when that is the only way that we greet people, our kids pick up on this. They really pick up on it. And they think that commenting on people's appearance is a way that mature people or adult people greet people, you know? I'd say that's the third one, is just be mindful about the way you talk about bodies, whether you comment on people's bodies changing or even on TV, you know, she's so beautiful, or beautiful and say beautiful and slim, or he's so handsome and muscly, or something like that. So just being really aware of the language that you use in front of your kids about bodies. What else? I think of course, as a dietitian, I would also recommend, you know, just providing a wide variety of foods to your kids and having fun with food, you know, not making it something that defines our value and worth. You know, you're not a good person if you refuse birthday cake. It does not make you a better person. And if you're a Christian, for example, it does not make you get into heaven. Sorry, you know. So helping kids to enjoy all foods and help them stay in tune with their appetites. You know, babies are born with an intact appetite and they know exactly how much milk at first they need, right? And then over time, through our culture and through exposure, kids learn, oh, eat everything on your plate, or, oh, you can't possibly be hungry. And all these really, really subtle and not so subtle ways that we teach kids not to trust their appetite. So in a nutshell, and that's not a nutshell, that's a big nutshell, those would be my top for parents.
But I would buy that magazine for sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And you mentioned the Body Positive Australia before, and I surely want to know more about that because you and Sarah Harry, the founder of Fat Yoga, are the creators of the Body Positive Australia. And first off, even little me here in Switzerland is happy that you started this, because I think no matter where it is, we cannot have enough people who save us from falling back into those old diet mentality thoughts and into all the traps out there of thinking that our bodies are wrong or unacceptable or whatever. So what is the Body Positive Australia exactly?
So Sarah is a psychotherapist and a yoga teacher. And then I'm a dietitian and also a sports dietitian as well. So I also work with athletes. I've been working with the Australian Ballet for about 10 years and other kind of elite athletes. So, my main aim there is to really help get that body positive message into elite sport, and working with coaches and teachers and just helping this message spread throughout all of our community. So together we run group therapy for women. It's called RIPE, which is Recovery is Possible for Everyone, RIPE. And as I said, we've been, together every Saturday for almost 12 years now, and we love our therapy groups. So as you mentioned, yes, Sarah is the founder of Fat Yoga, which is, it's just amazing. It has just exploded here in Australia. Her classes are sold out for like 6 months in advance. And this is super, super, super exciting news. We are holding our very first Fat Yoga retreat in Bali next year, and we've almost sold out. It's amazing. And the women just love it. A lot of my clients go to Fat Yoga, and it's a space. It's a space specifically for fat bodies, for women who self-identify as fat. So it is, again, a self-definition. And, our goal is to take the stigma away from that word and reclaim it and say, yeah, I live in a fat body and I'm a human being and I am worthy and I am valuable and everybody else fuck off. Just reclaim it for what it is. Yeah, so that's going really well. And yes, Sarah and I, we actually do quite a bit of teaching at university. We teach into our dietetics courses here. So our students in Melbourne, which is where we're both from, at the master's level, we teach into that program in body image and counselling skills and what's called the non-diet approach, which is the practice principles with health at every size, or HAES, as you know. So we teach this at university, this is our way of trying to spread the love. We're trying to spread the word that all bodies are worthwhile, and we're trying to help student dietitians, understand how to work with people when they come with body concern. And we're trying to help health professionals not make the situation worse.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's fantastic that you offer trainings for other dietitians. Just recently, I got an email and I was so surprised because it was a 4th year or 4th grade student of dietetics, or a dietitian student, whatever you call it. And he said that he came across something like this. He's from Melbourne as well. He's called Dan.
Yeah, I know Dan. I met him last Sydney and he came to one of our workshops. Yes.
And he wrote to me and that he loved my podcast and that he was learning about this in a new way and he wants to spread the word. And then I just asked him, well, I'm going to have to talk to you one day because this is just awesome. So it needs someone who teaches them the right ideas. And you are doing that. So you're adding incredible value. I think this is exactly one area where real long-lasting change could happen if dietitians started to get proper education,
So it's not just Sarah and I, but my colleague Fiona Willer, who is, she is actually doing her PhD now in Haze and dietitians, in that exact kind of field of study, how much are we using it, what are we doing, da-da-da. And she and I have, for the past 3 years, been going around Australia training graduate dietitians. So our aim is to get it into all dietetics courses in Australia. At the moment, I think we've reached about 10% of dietitians in Australia with our training. So our aim is to just keep going and going and going and going and going, because I just think, Merritt, that once you know this stuff and you take it into your heart, you just can't unknow it. What you see, you can't unsee. What you know, you can't unknow. And I just think it's such a compassionate way of working with people. And the more we can understand about people's real experiences with food, the better equipped we are to really, truly help the people that we say we want to help. So, yeah, as you can tell, I'm pretty passionate about it because it's something that's really important to me. And I think that, just bringing us back to the very first part of our conversation, I think that I got really angry about what I saw, what I observed as a child. And I think I've discovered that as an adult, I'm trying to make it right in it, whichever way I can.
And I think it really resonates deep down on a soul level. This message somehow resonates and we recognize it as a deep truth, whether we are able to admit it yet or not. But this sounds more right than any other way I've ever heard. And it's as if the soul sighs and goes, yes, please, stop the war against yourself. Yes. So, we all need someone who opens our eyes and who turns us on to certain new ideas so that we can learn about them and tackle the issues. And then we are able to spread the word and infect others. And I mean, that's how ideas spread. So it takes every one of us to just, make little steps and maybe inspire others with it. And it seems like you're doing an awesome job, really. I mean, yeah.
Thanks. Like a good virus.
Yeah, it's like a good virus. You said it. Yeah. And you posted a link recently and just the title, it says something along the lines of, how does our relationship to our body influence our relationship to other people? Mm. That was like, ooh, because I think our relationship to our bodies and our food really reflects a lot of things, how we behave around stuff like our relationship to money, our relationship to joy, our relationship to trust, to other people. So I'd love to get your take on things here.
Yeah, I think that, when we're cutting ourselves off from having a full experience of ourselves, all parts of ourselves, then we often are not then willing to show those parts of ourselves to others as well. Whereas I think when we're able to acknowledge and embrace all parts of ourselves, then we can take the yum and the yuck of life and food and our bodies and our relationships too, and we're able to navigate our way through life, understanding that hardships are part of life, but that we can build our skills in being able to cope when things don't go the way we wish, and then we're able to celebrate, when things do go the way that we wish. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think that the relationship that we have with our body is undoubtedly one of the most important relationships. Well, I would say it's the most important relationship that we have, because we're going to be with us our whole lives. If we can't get along with ourselves, then, we're not really going to, reach our full potential, really. If we can be better friends with ourselves, then we can offer more to the world. We can offer more to each other. And I think that's the way forward in terms of improving the state of humanity. So, yeah, that's my kind of summary.
We could keep talking for weeks. I see it a lot of time has passed already. So I think you must leave your contact details with us so that everybody who is curious about your work and what you do, where they can find you. Where can they find you?
So the best way you can find us is Body Positive Australia. So we have a website, and because we are in Australia, it finishes with an AU. So it's www.bodypositiveaustralia.com.au. And if there's any dietitians listening, then I have a workshop and training and mindfulness-based practice type of site that's specific for health professionals and dietitians, which is called The Mindful Dietitian. And we have a Facebook page for Body Positive Australia where we post and repost all kinds of interesting, topical things. And what you will find often on our Facebook page is Sarah and I ranting on about something or another, but that's our style and we enjoy speaking out. So if you want to join us in getting angry at diets and body shaming and all the bullshit that our culture throws at us, then please join us on our Facebook page. And Merritt, I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. It's been, as you said, we could speak forever. My gosh.
Yeah, it's true. It's just, I forgot time and I really enjoy this. And I have like 1,000 more questions I'd love to ask. So I had to get my head straight and okay, how do I distill it down? Because we have to somehow still be within a reasonable time so that other people can still follow without going crazy. So I'll make sure to put the links to all of what she said in the show notes of this episode at lifeunrestricted.org in the podcast episode. And I have this ultimate last question that I ask everybody, and that is, what would you like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered as someone who gave things a go and stood up for people and had lots of fun and enjoyed swearing. That's what I'd like to be remembered for.
Standing ovations from my side. Yes, I'm all for these things. So now it's my turn to thank you because it was lovely talking to you.
You too, Merritt. Gosh, what a pleasure. It really has been. So let's keep in touch and look forward to seeing you online. But, hopefully one day we'll get to meet. And
that'd be so good.
And if you don't throw your elliptical off that balcony, then I fucking will. I tell you that right now.
That sounds like a good idea. I think I'm not going to do it. So you have to. Wouldn't that be awesome? That's the trick here. Yeah, it's like my Jedi mind trick. So, yeah. Thank you for this wonderful time.
I know, yes. I'll talk to you soon, Merritt.
Yes. Have a good day.
Okay.
This was today's dose of badassery from Life Unrestricted. Find the show notes with links to everything we mentioned in this episode over at lifeunrestricted.org. And if this show is making you feel good, awesome, make sure to subscribe and please let others feel good too. By leaving a 5-star review on iTunes, you'll help make this show more visible and therefore more accessible for others. You're the best. Thanks.